Hello! We have one longer story today from AITA while we say hello to the Central Sahara. Our story was posted in AITA, but what we actually have here is a very tricksy tale in disguise that belonged in the Entitled Parents corner of Reddit more than anything else. Our story tells the tale of a custom farmhouse built for family frolics that quickly turns into a circus, when one man decides to turn ringmaster and rescue a cousin who got left out to rot like a carrot in a cornfield. Let's head into the big top. For story 1. Me, male 30, and wife, female 27, own a sizable farm that is usually the nexus of family events. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 300 acres, and electrical hookups for 4 campers. The whole clan can come stay for extended visits in the summer. We built it that way deliberately. My cousin Bill, male, early 50s, has a daughter Alice, female, 18, from his first marriage. His first wife was an immigrant with no family in our country and no contact with any family in her home country. She passed away when Alice was 2 and Bill remarried Tanya, female, early 50s, 6 months later. They have since had 3 kids, 14 and 12-year-old males, female, 8. Alice is a brat. Everything in their house revolves around either the boys, their 2 oldest together, or their princess, their daughter together, and Alice is left behind. She doesn't get to go on family trips. They wouldn't pay for extracurricular stuff. She couldn't take elective classes that had extra fees, etc. I'm not a smart man, but I can recognize a kid that's hurting inside and being neglected. She's like Mr. Hyde with them and Dr. Jekyll elsewhere. For the last 4 summers, she's been coming to work on my farm because her parents don't want her around over summer break. She turned 18 recently, and leading up to her birthday, her dad was very adamant that she was being kicked out of the house when she turned 18 because it will teach her responsibility. We, wife, Alice and I, discussed it, and early on her birthday, we pulled up with my truck and packed her stuff up. We only packed things she purchased herself or things that were given to her by another person. My boss got creative with our benefits provider so we can get Alice on my medical benefits until she finishes university. She starts in a few weeks, so she's able to go to therapy. She's also able to get back into sports while still saving her money. This is where it all comes apart. Bill and Tanya are miffed that we took her in and refused to come to family events. Part of the family refused to attend as well because I'm undermining Bill and Tanya. I'll understand when I have kids. After they refused to attend events, a few others said that with gas being so expensive and not everyone attending, they'd skip as well. My answer of, okie dokie, come if you want and don't if you don't, further upset people. They thought I should have tried harder to get people to come, so now we're down to about a quarter of the family in attendance for events. My aunt suggested that we have Alice over on weekends and that she stays in a dorm during the week to smooth things over. I think that's dumb, but I'm dumb and stubborn. My wife thinks it's dumb and she's really smart, but also very much attached to the situation. Alice said she'd rather stay with us, but would try the dorms to help make peace. Am I the jerk for not going with the dorm suggestion to keep the peace? Edit for info. I called Alice a brat, and my original post was way past the character limit, but in some of the stuff that got pared down, I explained it more. Typical teenage acting out, but cranked up. Slamming doors, screaming matches with her stepmom, swearing. Probably 3 or 4 big blowouts a week, and sometimes over some pretty disproportionately small stuff. I've watched her grow, and the acting out definitely came after the exclusion from family stuff. Edit 2. Bit of a mini update. I ripped the band-aid off with the old fam jam and told them that fewer mouths to feed isn't the punishment they thought it was. Anyone else who was coming is still welcome, and I'd have the extra cash from not feeding so many people to help the folks concerned about gas prices make it out if they so choose. I'm in like 4 different family group chats, and they're all lighting up. I'm going to turn my phone on silent for a while and let the sparks fly. I'll check in on the post in a while, and if anything noteworthy comes up and it's interesting, I'll give you all an update in the future. Edit 3. Alrighty, here's the update on the situation and a little background info for some consistent topics in the comments. So, my family likes to gossip, and they're really efficient at it. If your truck breaks down with only you in it, 5 miles from home, word has reached every aunt and cousin before you're in your door. When I put the word out, it traveled fast. This morning, I've been called all the names in the book and some new ones, so there may be a revised and updated edition of said book coming out. I've been told I'm a good guy, a bad guy, I'm stupid, I'm smart, I'm short-sighted, I'm thinking ahead. It's been neat. Long story short, I've got about a dozen relatives telling me thanks and they'll buy me a pint next time they're out. Then about triple that who never want to speak to me again. So those are both significant victories. Now, nobody here really cares about me. We're all about Team Alice here. She's a Redditor, apparently, and came across the post independently of me showing her. There were tears born of stress and relief, I think. And she's going to be staying here with us until she's ready to start the next chapter of her life. Whatever and whenever that might be. She's got classes picked. Her college picks first-year classes for you for the most part, so it was a couple electives. She's looking into the Women's Rec League for a hockey team when the season starts, so she's all set on that front. Regarding feeding everyone and paying for gas, without going into details, I was very fortunate as a young man. I was working very, very hard at a job and woefully underqualified for, while a very wealthy person was on site. Basically, right place, right time. And the chief took me in and mentored me. We have made a lot of money on a business venture together in addition to me working for him. Since then, I haven't exactly had FU money, but enough that I was able to buy the property I live on outright and build my home here with my wife, who also makes good money. Family is important to both of us, and neither of our sides of the family tree have much for money. So we've always done our best to make sure money isn't a barrier to getting together and seeing one another. Now, the big news. Tanya drove down to my house this morning. Bill and I had some very loud, very angry words when he drove down last night after I chose the nuclear option in the family group chats. She actually waved a white flag from her car when she pulled up. I shooed the dogs and alpaca away and went out to talk to her, brought her out a muffin, and we had a bit of a chat. Allegedly, Bill was threatening to kick Alice out to scare her straight, and that they weren't actually going to kick her out. They were caught off guard when we showed up on the morning of her birthday. I told her that she was missing the point and that I'm not sure I could use small enough words or short enough sentences to explain it to her if she thought that was the only problem. She cried. She peeled out of my driveway at Mach 7 and it's been radio silent since, which I'm currently enjoying. I'm not really a Reddit guy, so I don't imagine I'll be back, but for my brief stay here. Relevant comments. In our conversations about the dorm, I told her that it was 100% her decision. I said that I really didn't care about cousins that I see and show up only when I'm feeding them. I wanted her to make the call that made her happy. Consensus between her and my wife seems to be that in a few years, the dorm may be a good step between living at home and her own place, but for now, staying with us is what she wants. More about Alice's relationship with Bill and Tanya. At this point, it's pure speculation, but I've always sort of picked up that Bill is of the opinion that Tanya and their kids together are his family. That she's this sort of Harry Potter-esque relation he's stuck with. At first, I thought it was a race thing. Her mom was from Guatemala and she has dark skin and pin-straight dark hair, rather than being pale, curly-haired like the rest of us. But as she aged, if you compare photos of her mom to her at the same ages, they could have been twins. I think it's a lot of jealousy from Tanya and Bill is just a dirtbag, so I have no idea how his brain works. More on OP using the term brat. What I meant is that Alice acts out pretty severely and is like a completely different kid with her folks than anywhere else. If you ask her teachers, coaches, other relatives who have her over, will all tell you she's a great kid, smart and compassionate. You see her at home with her parents and it's a different story. I 100% recognize that she's acting out so badly because the only time she gets any attention at home is when she's being punished. I cut the part explaining that out because I'm not such good with the wordsmithing sometimes. Alice doesn't cause harm from anything I've ever seen or been told. She stomps off and slams her bedroom door, gets into shouting matches a lot with her stepmom, and swears a lot. More about the rest of the family. Her dad and I have locked horns over this a few times. I was still a young gun myself when her mom passed, so I haven't always been in a position to do anything more than lock horns. But I've at least been here. Not to excuse the extended family, but I think a fair few of them would be more sympathetic if they lived closer. Or if they didn't just get his spin on it over Facebook and saw what the branch of the family tree that lives here sees. They're not a big league of evil aunts and uncles, they're just kinda ignorant. They have been fed a very creative interpretation of the truth by Bill and Tanya for over a decade, with no evidence of there being more to it. Plus, my dislike for Bill and Tanya is quite well known in our family, which also colors their perception of the situation a bit, I'd wager. Bill remarried Tanya quickly after his first marriage. That does sound ominous when it's put like that, but as far as I know, there's nothing untoward there. Alice's mom was hit by a random drunk driver and Bill's just a schmuck. Without putting the family dirty laundry out there, my understanding is that their marriage was born out of convenience and not necessarily love. That's its own story that doesn't really belong on Reddit. Reddit voted not the jerk. Update 1. So, about a year ago, my cousin Alice moved in with me and my wife on her 18th birthday after being told she needed to move out on said birthday from her parents' house. The good. A year later, she's a year into an engineering degree. She's been playing lots of hockey, raised a couple of steers all on her own. At her therapist's recommendation, she's down to monthly sessions after a brief stop at bi-weekly after starting with weekly. She's the same sweet kid but without the extra unneeded stress of being treated like an also-ran alongside her younger siblings. The bad. Her dad showed up about a month after my original post and there was a confrontation of sorts that ended with a peace bond being issued. It had restrictions on how Bill and Tanya could contact Alice, myself, my missus, or a couple other family members that got involved. After the 6 months required by the peace bond, Tanya started getting back up to her old tricks. But Bill seems to have smartened up a bit. The peace bond meant she had limited contact with her siblings, which has been tough. The oldest, 15-year-old male, started out pretty hostile, but some of the other cousins filled him in on what was going on. I got blamed for his sudden shift in attitude because we've established that I am just the worst with jazz hands and everything. The silly, gossipy family mellowed out when they realized that the literal gravy train wasn't going to stop at the station for them. Thanksgiving last year was 26 people compared to the 60 plus that came the last year I threw it prior to COVID restrictions. Easter this year was back up to an even 40, so we're probably going to plateau a little short of the old numbers. As for resolution to the problem, Bill has been texting Alice every couple of days to check in. They've gone for coffee a few times after the peace bond expired. I'd go to his funeral, but not his birthday party, were Alice's words when I asked her about where they're at. I'm hoping time can heal that wound, but she's been really good at setting boundaries. To quote one of the great warrior poets of our time, John Cougar Mellencamp, life goes on. Relevant comments. On Tanya and Bill, yeah, the two of them are a bit of mustard shy of a sandwich sometimes. They've sworn up and down that they weren't actually going to kick her out and that it was meant to smarten her up and stuff like that. Whether or not they're lying is for someone who cares more about it to figure out. Kiddo's safe and sound, that's what matters. Where they're from. Oh, Canada. That part's not a secret. It's a big place. People from rural Canada talk funny. Truth in television. One more thought on his family and their relationship. I was the Alice of my generation of the family tree. Thankfully, while I didn't have a relative to throw me a bone, the chief took me under his wing. Because of this, they rightly assume I have a chip on my shoulder and am projecting my own frustration and hurt on the situation. They're wrongly assuming that the chip, frustration, and hurt are the sole motivating factors, and that I'm seeing parallels between us that aren't there because of it. This has led some of the family that got one side of things and not others to be hesitant to take anything I say, do, think at face value. Is what it is, I suppose. In the comments, Spark Oxalotl quoted, "I shooed the dogs and alpaca away and went out to talk to her," said, "I'm not sure if it was intended, but I'm totally picturing an alpaca behaving cartoonishly like a dog." Poison Harles replied, "That's not far off to be honest. More spit though." Diggity Diggity Doo said, "OP seems far too good for most of his family. Strange how that works with the black sheep sometimes." Hopefully Romantic replied, "And then they take credit for the black sheep's success because their poor treatment made them stronger. Ugh." Corfiz74 said, "I don't get why they still tried to contact Alice though. You'd think they'd just let her go and be glad to be rid of her." Fatty48 replied, "People like to lie to themselves about being good. If he still tries a little bit, he can tell himself he's doing everything and he's still a good person. He's not, but that's what he can tell himself." That last reveal of OP being the black sheep in the family really does explain everything. Ridiculous that the family views it as clouding his judgment versus having compassion for Alice because he knows how it feels to be shoved under the proverbial stairs. I feel for Alice and can also see how it'd be a bit of a slap in the face for Bill and Tanya to have a family member swoop in and basically save Alice. But I think they're just upset that it makes them look bad. OP is definitely not the jerk. He's Alice's knight in shining armor, but riding an alpaca instead of a horse. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.